You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. Adding to that is the Doghouse, and so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, check out Bethany Children's Health Center. They're helping children reach their full potential as a leader in pediatric rehabilitation. They're also building a new outpatient center of excellence, and it's going to be a landmark right on Route 66. Want to learn more or even schedule a tour? Just head to bethanychildrens.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. That's bethanychildrens.org. What's up, guys? Just want to jump in here real quick. I had some audio issues with the first few minutes of this episode, so if you'll bear with us, the real audio will kick in around the 8-minute mark. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and enjoy this episode with Ronnie Davis. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike and your host, back with another episode. We're down at Bedford's Camera. I don't say this enough. If you need any prints, camera, anything like that, just come down here. It's the best place for it. Use discount code This Is Okay, and you'll get a nice discount. But yeah, these guys at Bedford's are awesome. They do everything in the camera world, so come on down. Gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Mr. Ronnie Davis. You've probably seen him on Instagram somewhere, modeling something, looking good. But you actually work for a living as well. So we're going to dive into the story. I appreciate you coming in. Thanks for taking the time out. And I'm going to dive into your story, traveling the world.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. But it doesn't, I know you travel the world, but your deep Oklahoma roots, and excited to dive into,
yes, sir.
Your story and everything like that. But take it way back. Where were you born and raised, and what do you remember the most from your childhood?
I was born here in Oklahoma. I moved to Southern California for a small stint of my childhood, and then I moved back here, and I would say around like 11 or 12 years old is when I kind of got introduced to like the Western aspect of life here, and I never looked back, honestly. For me, it was kind of like a getaway from like what I was accustomed to. I come from a heavy sports family, football, basketball, baseball, and at that point, that was really all I had known. And I was introduced to horses, and it became like this therapeutic outlet for me, And heck, now we probably 18 years later or something, and it's created a way of life for me, And so not to put it all in such a summary, but I moved back here, and kicked it off with horses, but I was playing football too. So I went to Midwest City High School, is where I graduated in 2012 for football. I don't know, at that time I was probably ranked top 10 in the state, maybe top 20 in the nation.
Okay.
I ended up going to junior college for 3 semesters up in Miami, Oklahoma, NEO, where they had a rodeo team and a fairly decent football team. And I was able to get recruited to go on to play for a Division I school, which was the University of Kansas.
Okay.
I graduated from there 2016, moved back here, and I pursued 100% until my professional rodeo career. And fast forward to now, 2025, just being a rodeo athlete has led me to other gigs like modeling, and as of 2024, I'm now a classified model. So it's been a lot of interchangeable things going on within the Western culture that has highlighted what I can offer, to society, but has also helped me kind of mold into who I am today.
Yeah. Back to when you're, growing up, you mentioned football, basketball being big part of your family, big athletic family. Do you have a lot of brothers and sisters? Are you part of a big family? Was there a lot of internal competition growing up? Like, there's always a game going on?
Yeah, no, definitely. I have a lot of siblings, and my family were kind of real small, but like close knit. So like, even if it wasn't my siblings, it'd be like cousins, and we would spend a lot of our time, competing against each other, and I think that instilled that competitive nature into me, but it also like kept that family core about me and what I stand for. And more than anything, I think that is what kind of helped shape me in the competitive world, but also just being someone who represent like passion and grit.
So you mentioned being 11 years old, kind of introduced to horses. Take me to that moment. Where was it? What was that like? And then what was it about being around, kind of the Western world, being around horses specifically, that just kind of struck a chord with you?
Honestly, I started out, a lot of my Western upbringing would be down in Tecovas, Oklahoma, which is Highway 7 in between Davis and Duncan. Right now, my cousin, he's actually the mayor there, Chris Harvey. But he, when I was a kid, he was actually kind of like one of the older cousins that laid the foundation for, us in the Western world within our family. But just going down to Tatum's, as a kid, 11, 12 years old, it was like a sense of freedom. I had grown up as an inner city kid, and I just felt like I didn't fit or I didn't belong. I had like a free spirit, I was always wanting to kind of like venture off and be adventurous. And going down, to Tatum's, Oklahoma, or just, anywhere kind of rural, it would be Spencer, Oklahoma at times, it would be Jones, Oklahoma, but it was just something about the countryside that kind of like gave me like a sense of kind of like letting my hair down and just really, really just thriving, as a kid at that point. But that was what kind of had sucked me into the lifestyle, and I just found like a love for horses. I've always been like an animal guy, and I thought it would be dogs at one point, but growing up I didn't really like dogs. So once I got introduced to horses, I had to tell my dad about it. I'm like, like, we gotta get a horse now. He's like, bro, you scared of dogs? I was like, nah, man. I said, well, a horse ain't a dog, and I'm not scared of dogs anymore. But he's like, well, I don't know anything about a horse. He's like, you gonna teach me? And I actually taught my dad about the lifestyle. He didn't know much about horses. Like I said, he was a basketball guy, but due to like my stint of just kind of venturing outside of, like I say, the city, and me having family members that were accustomed to the Western, lifestyle already, it was easier for me to just kind of jump in with them and learn what I was learning from them, but also to teach my dad, because in the end, he was a guy that I started rodeoing with. He sponsored a lot of, my rodeos, and he bought horses and stuff for me growing up. So it was like, the more I taught him, the better off I'd be.
So do you dad rides now from that?
Yeah, he still rides now. He rodeoed for a bit, a small stint of time, but he's older. He just kind of enjoys like pleasure riding, and he'll come out every now and then. We have a very dominant bloodline of horses, pedigree-wise, whenever we're talking about performance horses and racing horses, and he actually helped me start that. So he prides himself on that, but I run all operations, So we've been good in that aspect, and he's just been like my number one fan through it all. So
that's a full, right? That's awesome.
That's it.
So you have this moment, love being outside, kind of running around as a kid, inner city kid and have this, these kind of little breaks every now and then. You go to the country and it kind of fuels you to want to be a part of the Western world. But I assume the dream still then is to go play professional football.
Yeah, that was the goal. Like I say, it was kind of instilled in me as a kid. Like, if I wanted, like, I guess quote unquote the nicer things, the finer things in life, like I could use my talents, to get that greater financial gain, and like I say, to be able to take care of the things I wanted and needed, but also my family. So I was kind of like the first of a lot for my family. I was the first one to go to like school and graduate from a Division I college. I wasn't the first to play at a college gate level, but to finish and have the respect within the sport, I think I was for sure the first of many for my family. So like I said, the objective was to go to the NFL. I was projected to go the top 2 rounds going into my senior year at the University of Kansas. I was ranked maybe number 20 in the nation at my position, which was cornerback.
Okay.
And so, it was looking pretty good. I hadn't ever been hurt, and I ended up rupturing my patella tendon. So, like we just watched the draft. Like, every week I would watch my draft stock drop going, like, my senior year. So it was like depressing, because I had everybody back home, in the smaller community that I was from that was kind of banking on me to be the one to, like, make it. And, it was a sense of kind of like letting everybody down whenever it didn't happen. So, like, when I came home, heck, I didn't want to be seen, but part of me coming back home was so the younger generation could actually, like, see me someday, or, these younger kids could meet me and see me in person, because growing up, I didn't really have an idol or somebody that I just looked up to and could visually, like, imitate, and, like, I wanted to do things that way. So a lot of me moving back to Oklahoma after college was just to be this person that, the younger generation and, people could kind of see doing good things, but I wasn't even looking at myself as a leader at that point. I was just kind of a guy that if I can put out good, hopefully it kind of spreads,
Yeah. No, and I totally get that. And I don't want to pass over. I want to talk about, there's so many lessons there, but also you mentioned going to NEO, going to JUCO before going, to KU.
That's right.
Clearly, you didn't give up, right? Like, you were just like, I want to go play somewhere. I want to go prove that I can do this. Because a lot of the guys would have just been, I didn't make it. Maybe I'll just go to a normal school or go somewhere at school. But you chased it, kept chasing it, worked hard, and eventually paid off because you go to a Division I school.
Definitely. Yeah, and for me, you always say, like, the universe kept putting certain rewards or reminders that I was somewhat along the right journey. In high school, I was a well-known athlete in the state of Oklahoma, and most of my family were either OU or Oklahoma State fans, just because it was like an interstate colleges. So I wanted to go to either one. I didn't care which one at that point, but I was like, if I could stay home and play in front of my family, I would love to do so. And that was part of the resilience. Whenever those guys, they didn't really pass up on me with some qualifications I didn't have. I hadn't taken an ACT test until my senior year. It was like February. I had 2 months left to graduate. So I couldn't take an official visit to a Division I school even after football season. But those are things, like I say, with me being the first one to go through this process within my family, my parents didn't really know much about it, So, like I said, if I can do this stuff and learn, I'll teach the next person, to come. But that was really part of the motivation, was just staying resilient through it all, because I always had this goal in the back of my mind that no matter what circumstances I was given, I would use the best or I would make the best of it, essentially, And I went from NEO to the University of Kansas, and I gave it my all, but I stayed close to my Western community the whole time. So it's like I would be in college for football, but on my breaks I would come home and I would rodeo. And I was able to do that up until I got to the University of Kansas, and Charlie Weiss, who's my head coach at the time, he said, you're going to have to pick one. He said, if you come here, you're going to have to take a break from the horse. Yeah. And at that point, no one had ever told me that. And it was kind of, I remember going back home, and I told my mom, I was like, man, he said, I come there, I can't rodeo for 2 years. She's like, well, it'll always be there. And I was like, I don't know if I want to step away from rodeo. But, part of it, was that was certain things that I had to kind of sacrifice for the greater gain.
Yeah.
But it kind of, like I said, it acted as like a catapult. Because like the time I took off, it made me dive that much more into it whenever I was able to get back going.
Yeah.
And like I say now, that's what I do for a living. I ranch for, I guess that's my lifestyle. That's what I do for a living. And the rodeoing is the fun part. It's me still being able to compete, under the lights in front of fans, but also it keeps me in that gridiron mode, like it gives me something to work for. Like on a rodeo week, I call it a game week, the same way I would if it was like I was getting ready for a football game. Preparation-wise, I treat it the same, mentally. And even physically, I still take care of my body pretty good. I take care of my horses, so it's all been able to correlate within each other and put out a good product.
Yeah. Going back to that kind of high school age and that, that competitive nature in you see the horses, you're outdoors, you find this, but then obviously you find the competitive side of it, which is the rodeo side that you talk about. What's that progression from kind of that moment where you want to be in the Western world before you end up competing, going to NEO? Talk about that period, about finding the love for it, picking a type of rodeo competition that you fit best in, and just diving into it for someone that has grown up competitive but then is moving into this area as someone who doesn't really know much about it yet, but you're learning, you're eager to get after it.
I think what it influenced me as far as rodeo discipline, like the direction I took, we had older guys like my granddad, basically like my adopted granddad. Like I say, this family kind of took me in, not on paper, but like, hey man, who's that kid that's always around, But they were all calf ropers. So before I learned how to do anything, I learned how to throw a rope, and it was just more so the skill. It wasn't for competition, but it was like, hey, if you're going to be out here working with horses, you got to learn how to throw a rope. Some may break loose. We may see loose cattle. That was just a skill, that was required. So that was the first thing I had ever got introduced to. But I would go to the arena, and it would be these guys running like relay patterns, and handing off a baton. And at that point, I didn't know what it was called, but it was, for any kid, like, it was the number one sport you want to do because you actually got to run a horse. Growing up, everybody wants to just make something go fast. Yeah. And I seen these guys, and they were pony expressing. And I was about 11, 12 years old, so I instantly, like grew love for that discipline within sport. And I didn't know at the time that this was only on the amateur circuit here in Oklahoma. It wasn't globally known or nationally known. It wasn't a professional discipline. I was just like, hey, man, it's fun. Mm-hmm. So I got into pony expressing, which is basically, like I said, a relay race on horses. It's an Oklahoma-grown sport. It was invented here. But for me, it was exciting because, I still had that team aspect. It's 8-man teams. You have a captain. You have a leader. You have, like you said, you have your standout impact players, and you have role players. And that was the discipline that I had chose to go into just because it was more catchy at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't really have the proper guidance, to like go into professional roping or even roping as a junior, as a kid. It was just a talent that we learned, a skill within the Western culture. As I gotten older, and I learned the difference, and I've used my influence to bring awareness to the sport of Pony Express. Mm-hmm. I've also ventured off into calf roping to do something like as a solo individual and a solo athlete, but also to just further myself within the rodeo world. And like we say, we do everything like from a professional standpoint. So to be classified as a professional is something that I wear with pride, So that's what led from the transition. But I still do Pony Express as well, and now we're like I say, me and the rodeo community itself, we're kind of using the influence of the cowboy culture to bring more awareness to this smaller sport that we have here in Oklahoma. That, I mean, when people see it, like they naturally gravitate to it. But it's so much other people within the rodeo world itself, as well as just within the United States, that hadn't been introduced to the sport of Pony Express yet. So, like I say, I'm using some of my influence to also bring awareness and spread the knowledge of the sport.
Yeah.
But also, whenever we're talking about like just individually, like my goals as a competitor, like I said, it's to be professional, and ride with the pros. I've got a taste of it the last couple of years, and it's something that I just want to build and expand on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you go to NEO and you got a rodeo team, so you're always around it. Even though you're playing football, you're a lot closer to it than you were at KU. And then you go to KU and your coach is like, nah.
Right.
This is, I'm paying you to be on scholarship. You need to be here and play football.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because I studied ag while I was at NEO. And the University of Kansas, they don't have an ag program. But Kansas State does. And they were both kind of pushing, like recruiting me at the time. And I ended up choosing Kansas over at University at Kansas State. And I got there, and I'm telling, we're signing up for our courses and stuff. And I told my academic advisor at the time, I said, I'm just put me in whatever ag class. She said, you're on the wrong side, buddy. We don't have that here, So it was a lot that I had to change, And I had all these prereq courses that I had taken that, I mean, credit-wise, a few of them transferred, but they weren't directed towards any of the majors that I was introduced to whenever I transferred. So that was a bit of a transition for me. But like I say, I was fortunate enough to still be close to the horses while at NEO. And then I got to Kansas. I met a lady within the football administration, and she had 2 horses. She's like, I haven't got anybody to ride them. And I'm like, I'll do it for you,
Yeah.
And she was like, well, we don't want to tell coach. I was like, I got it. And she had some crazy horses, but it was moving for me because her and her husband, they hadn't ridden the horses. And I went over, I trained them. And before I graduated, they were both able to ride the horses out on their land. So,
that's cool.
For me, that was kind of like you said, another rewarding, motivating tool that was like, hey, I'm going to keep you close to the horses, but right now we got bigger fish to fry. And like I said, I think more than anything, it was getting education at the time, and graduating with a degree. That's certain things that people can't take from you. But also, that's part of me breaking down these barriers that my family hadn't accomplished yet. So,
yeah. What is it, you mentioned kind of, training and coaching side of things and being able to train a horse. What is that side of you, and who does that side of you come from? Mom's side or dad's side?
I would say probably neither. I mean, my dad's side, his family is more Western for sure, but a lot of it was just instilled, from things that I was accustomed to growing up. I took some of the things and the methods that I learned as an athlete and applied it to me training and performing with my horses. But also, I worked at a racetrack, Remington Park here, and I was able to see a lot of hands-on work, that the grooms do, that the average person don't really see, and that helped me educate myself on training a performance horse, but also taking the proper precautions to take care of this horse's joints, this horse's digestive system. It's a lot that goes into that me just being like a student and wanting to soak up and being a sponge for knowledge, like it all went into basically what I offer as a horseman to, like I say, my horsemanship friends, but as well as, my horses and my formula. So I would say, the influences that I was around within sports in the Western world helped me kind of pick, certain things, and just because, everybody have their own different way of going about things within the cowboy culture of the Western world. But I think the goal is always similar, you know, which is to protect our livestock and to maximize the potential of the horse and the rider.
Yeah. How was KU? What was it like being a student athlete at KU and spending some time up there? You know, I mean, KU's known for basketball, right? So there is that too, and you obviously have a huge basketball side of your family as well. But what's KU like for football, basketball, going to school there as a student athlete, and lessons you learned?
KU was it was very welcoming. You know, it's a small. Lawrence is a college community. It's not like what we see here in Norman or Stillwater. I mean, I could be biased and say that it's better, but it's one of those things. If you go and you spend time out there, the atmosphere is different. You know, and like I said, I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's different.
Yeah.
They pride themselves on their basketball team there. And for me, just being a student athlete, it was a wonderful experience because there's not many of us on campus. So, I mean, of course, you stick out when you're walking around with a Letterman on. But for me, it finally gave me that college feel. You know, like I went junior college. I was there for 3 semesters, so basically a year and a half. And I hadn't got financial aid or Pell Grant check yet. Yeah. That was basically used to pay for my scholarship, you know, for a junior college scholarship. So when I got to KU, that was one of the first things that popped. I said, man, I got a stipend. That was, I think, maybe $800. I got my first Pell Grant check. That was probably $3,500. And, you know, you start that half month of January coming off of Christmas break. And so I was only there for 2 weeks, and I had like $5,500 in my account. I swear I was rich. I hadn't ever had probably more than $500, you know? So that was the first thing that got me. But just being able to, like I say, I think show my talents on that level or that platform and still be respected and more than anything highlighted for what I had to offer, I think that was the biggest positive impact that the University of Kansas left on me. You know, it was friendly. You know, it was wonderful, but it also helped me apply more to learning. You know, like as a student athlete, there's a lot required out of you. I mean, my schedule is I'm up at sometimes 5 or 6 in the morning. We got workouts, and then I'm in class from maybe 8 a.m. to 12 noon, you go to lunch, and then you're straight to the facilities for practice. We're there from probably 12:30 to 3:30. You know, you from practice straight to we'll eat, of course, but you're straight to the tutoring facility. So, you know, at times I would leave my apartment at 6 in the morning, I would make it back at 10 p.m. at night, you know, because now we're in tutoring from, you know, some people, you know, it's either from 5 to 8. Some people it's from 5 to 10, depending on how much help you need, right? But of course, you have a mandatory dinner that they throw in there for the team. But like I said, it just kind of taught me how to leave home and like go out and make something of myself every day. And after a while, it just instilled in me, like, and now I apply that to like myself in the real world. You know, like I get up every day and I make sure I go do something. You know, I call it movement is medicine. You know. Being a rancher, you know, like I say, in Oklahoma, we have days like today where it's stormy showers and it's not much that you can do, but it's still things that's required of you, you know. So, I mean, we still have to feed horses. We still have to feed cows. And like I said, I'm probably outside 365 days a year.
That's awesome.
Kansas had taught me, you know, how to weather the cold weather, you know, weather the storm as well. But I think more than anything, it was just kind of a great motivating tool for me going into the real world.
So you graduate, come back home, like you kind of mentioned a little earlier, just, you know, coming home obviously is a great feeling to come home, but also to give kind of people that, you know, someone to look at that you didn't have growing up, someone to say, look, I grew up here with Hardwick, I can, you know, go be and graduate at be a student athlete and graduate from a D1 school and kind of give back a little bit, right? You know, and even at a lot of people tend to give back when they're a little older. They don't tend to give back, or they don't have it on their brain when they just graduated.
Definitely.
So it's really, I love that you've come back and want to kind of speak to the next generation and younger generation that like through hard work, and doesn't matter where you come from, what your background looks like, you know, you can, with hard work, you can get to where you're at. And
Definitely.
you know, you're a total example of that.
Yes, sir. And like, you know, a lot of it is just kind of, I mean, I've learned to pride myself on, I guess, being as resilient as I am, but it's kind of like a sense of hope too. You know, I have friends that come from, you know, wonderful married backgrounds, and I have friends, you know, and I myself come from, you know, split homes, growing up in families where, you know, we didn't really go without. We had everything we needed, but there was a lot of hope for more, you know, and at that point, if you don't know what that looks like, you just don't. And for me, I just didn't know what that looked like at the time. I just knew I wanted more, you know, and I think now when some people see me, they get that sense of hope, because it's like, people ask me, like, man, bro, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know, you know, like, I just wake up every day and I put on my pants and boots the same way the next person does, you know, but I think through my consistent output of just waking up every day and wanting to further myself, I think the universe has rewarded me or put me into situations to where I can do that, but also be highlighted on a pedestal that people can kind of see it and be like, hey, I can do that too, you know? Like, I never got into this deal for the fame, you know? That was never the goal. Heck, you can ask my people, if we go somewhere, I'm probably trying to shy off and not really be seen, you know, but more than anything, it's just being a positive influence for, like I say, my community and my family, and the people that have invested into me, whether it was teachers that, you know, I went to school with, people within the rodeo community. It's just, you know, just being a positive output of everything that was put into me and instilled into me is what I like to represent, honestly.
Yeah. Tell me about kind of where you were in mindset coming home after graduating, kind of head down at Pro Rodeo. That was kind of the line. Tell me about that and where that leads to, and, you know, obviously working alongside that as well.
Yeah. Man, honestly, that transition, it was a depressing transition. Because it was my first time, but like I said, I had also learned a lot, you know. I was signed with an agency. I had to resolve a contract. I ended up signing with another agency, but through it all, I didn't really understand why, but now I do. Like, I was learning certain things then that I apply now to my life, and I deal with it now with professionals. Then I'm like, okay, you know, I've looked at a contract like this before, you know, or something similar. So I would say just that transition alone, it wasn't the easiest, but for me, it was something that I was more so interested in doing because it was challenging. Like, I like the challenge. And I think, to answer your question, I think what the continuing motivating factor of it all was that I was starting something new, like a new life. You know, I hadn't embarked on this professional rodeo journey. I hadn't even embarked on this solo. Rodeo is what I do now for a living. Rodeo is who I am. I'm not this football player anymore. You know, it was just, but it was, for me, it was kind of like a second home, because instead of living under a helmet, I was now living under a cowboy hat, you know. So I still felt like I had, you know, my helmet, my shield. The mission was still the same, you know, which was to go out and, you know, coordinate, you know, with teams, on how to accomplish the mission, you know, or a task. But, you know, for me, it was also like a getaway, you know, and I think that was the underlying factor a lot of people didn't see. You know, like I say, I dealt with, I guess at this point, I look back, I was depressed, you know. I had worked endlessly to like become this professional athlete, you know, and I thought it would be for football. I didn't know it would be for rodeo, you know, but I just knew what it took to become a professional. And when it didn't go as planned within football, I used some of the same things, and I just directed it towards the sport of rodeo, and it propelled me to new heights. And I don't think I would have been able to do that if I hadn't faced adversity prior to the transition. But like I say, when adversity hit, it made me go a little harder. So I mean, it made me who I am today. And I've enjoyed, like I say, working along with some professional athletes. I've met professional athletes that I thought I looked up to, but they looked up to me, and they was kind of starstruck and seeing me in the same setting. Like, I'm like, "What's up, bro?" And like, "Nah, bro, like, what's up, man?" Like, "It's you," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's you." Like, but like I say, it's been rewarding. It's been a wonderful journey.
I think I'm 34 years old, so like I grew up like without participation medals, and I'm a big proponent of like kids in sports as early as possible. Kids should play as many sports as possible. Kids should learn how to lose. Yeah, and because you said you have to have adversity, you have to go home crying your eyes out because you lost a football game that means nothing.
Definitely,
right? It means nothing when you're 6 years old or 10 years old, or however it is. But you get used to that, and then you understand why you have to work harder to go win, and you understand what winning takes.
Definitely.
And and you've known that at the highest level in college, right? You know what it's like to lose, you know what it's like to win. And fortunately for you, you've had a way to channel that out of football, close the book on football, and channel that at rodeo.
Definitely. It's been for me. It's been kind of a process that I wish everything was documented, But like I said, I document as much as I can, and it's. Like I say, it's not for me, it's more so for clinic. Like if we can use this film as clinic film for the next person or the next generation or people who's like-minded individuals, like it'll only help them. Like for me, I had to kind of bump my head a lot to get to where I am now. But if some people have the blueprint laid out, if they want to go into this lifestyle, if I've created a blueprint that I can pass down to basically help break this glitch within the matrix on how to get from here to there, like, hey, I've did what I was supposed to do, so that's what I'm doing. It's working. We've been saying that a lot this year, 2025, that it's working, that's it, just those two words, it's working. We pride ourselves on laying the foundation for certain things, it may take off a month from now, it may take off a year from now, but like we put into that foundation, so when it did take off, it'll stay, So to see like some things coming into fruition and starting to work, I can look at some, or I talk to my buddy Houston, which is hats off to him. He's literally helped me bridge the gap of, I would say, professionalism, within what I can offer to life, and some of the things that I've had the experience of offering. He's just been in the shadows and just kind of been like, hey, do this, do that. We'll clean this up, we'll clean that up. But, hats off to him. He's helped me out a lot. But like I said, we'll talk, we meet once a week, that we have. So it's 52 weeks in a year. I talk to him 52 times for sure, more than that. But like we'll meet and, we'll go over our checklist. We'll go over certain things, and it's just like, hey, man, we get to the end. We look at some things and it's like, yeah, man, it's working, So I always say, everything that has made me who I am up until this point, 2025, like the foundation is already laid. And I get to sit back and kind of reap the benefits and enjoy, but it's still, it's like you can't enjoy the highlights while you're in the game. You know what I mean? My boy, that's one of the famous things he always said. And it's like, he didn't play like college ball or nothing, but he understands, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like, that's probably why we clicked up so good together, because like certain things where he helped me out, but he like, man, like you doing it, it's working. He's like, but like you said, we can't enjoy the highlights while we're in the game. We'll get to that when we get to it. So part of that, just kind of like you say, just keep your head down, keep working. I think that's essentially what he's saying, but like you say, like it's working. So, everything, like I said, that's happened before now is created what we see here today. Yeah. And we're proud of it.
Yeah, not done yet, right?
Not
Just
done
getting
yet.
started.
Just getting started.
For people listening, I know mostly more about Oklahoma than the average human because of the podcast and everything else that I do. But
Surely.
so even though I have I still have a basic understanding of there is a huge, significant history around Black Rodeo in Oklahoma.
It is.
And you mentioned Pony Express, and most people know the Bowley Rodeo, right?
Uh-huh.
If you don't, if you live under a rock, look it up.
Yeah.
But for people listening, because that's coming up, right?
Yeah. Bowley Rodeo will
Yeah.
be here. I want to say that it's Memorial Day weekend, so it's a Saturday. It'll probably, don't butcher me on this date, but I believe it's May 24th. It's either 24th or the 23rd. You look it up that Saturday. Bowley Rodeo will be live and in action, which is, I think they'll probably have a record in attendance this year just because of the awareness, around the culture itself. But for me, I stand as a person that's bridging the gap between Black rodeo, pro rodeo. It's just, for me, it's just like, hey man, I'm a cowboy, I rodeo. I think now it's being highlighted more, which is great. It's like, oh, we have Black rodeos, we have this, we have that. But I think what a lot of people are failing to realize that, within the cowboy culture, like, we don't really separate it much anymore by color or race. I think we've all kind of grown to learn. Like I say, it's just within the culture itself. Like, we've grown to learn, like, hey, like, no matter how far you look back, a lot of my people, your people, whatever, like, we all kind of had the same beliefs and the same makeup and the same ideals and the same goal. But as we grew older, it was now kind of sanctioned and separated by, like, races and religion or things like that. And it's like, hey, when we all in this hat, we like to say it's like, literally we're one. We're all the same. Yeah, Cowboy's cowboy. Yeah. So it's like, I admire the awareness that it's bringing, but I guess it's still highlighting the divide. And like I say, my goal is to bridge the divide. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you're a resident of Oklahoma. Me being, born in Oklahoma, I'm made up of many different races. Probably everything you'll see in the room, whether it's Native American, white, black, maybe a bit of Hispanic. It's just Oklahoma serves as that melting pot, but also as an example that all these people can coexist. Like-minded individuals. With the same goal in mind. But like you say, to highlight, we do have Bowley Rodeo coming up. We have Okmulgee Rodeo coming up. We have things that will go on in Tatum's, Oklahoma. And a lot of what the Black rodeo circuit wants to offer is the experience. It's like, we rodeo, you know what I mean? I rodeo on professional rodeos, on the professional circuit, as well as on the amateur circuit. But I think, the difference of the two is you have one that's very structured, as an event, and you have one that's like a family reunion. It's structured, but, some things may go a little longer than others. But I think more than anything, that's what the rodeo community wants to highlight and offer and show people. Is like, hey, like just come out here, bag your tailgate up, like, enjoy this experience. You know what I mean? Like, it's maybe a little more radical than the typical professional set rodeo, but it still ran on from a professional basis, on a professional basis, and from a professional standpoint. So I think right now, it's more so important to amplify the experiences that you'll get within the two, as well as the knowledge that you'll gain from just going to either or. You'll see the difference. But like I said, we're all, like, my mind, I'm big on learning. So I think the more the masses learn, the better off that we'll be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. How does the modeling side come up? Had you kind of done anything in college coming into this? I mean, most people listening probably would have seen, all the news that caught up with you going to Paris, the whole Louis Vuitton thing. That's probably the greater people seeing this from the outside. But for you, where does your modeling career start? And how does that happen everything?
It starts right there.
It really is that how it started? You get a message or a phone call.
Yeah.
Is this real? Is this spam? What do you want from me?
In my mind, it was spam because I had never seen anything like that. I had just set up my Ronnie Davis bookings at Gmail email, and I was one of the first eye-popping emails that came through, and I literally didn't pay no attention to it.
Right.
In fact, I thought it was so much of a scam, and it actually took those guys maybe about 3 weeks to get in contact with me after sending 2 initial emails about reaching out and possibly collaborating. They had there was a guy, Ivan, a photographer out of Oregon, Portland, Oregon. He had reached out. He said, "Hey, man, you check your email?" I said, "Yeah." Like, man, Louis Vuitton is in there. He's like, "They've been trying to get in touch with you." And, coincidentally, he basically did the same thing for Wrangler. Wrangler was actually the first Western brand that had discovered me, and it wasn't really for modeling. They highlighted Pony Express and what I was offering to the sport in the Western community here in Oklahoma. And that was kind of, I guess, my first taste of modeling, but it wasn't classified modeling. They came out, I was on a horse, and they took pictures, so I wasn't, the requirements that actual models had, that I had to do, or the requirements that was given to me going to Paris for Louis Vuitton were actual model requirements. I had to, I had to get a physical. There's a lot of things I had to do prior to going, and I think one of the most important things that they asked me prior to offering the gig, they said, "Do you have a passport?" And we'll take this all the way back to football. I said, "Yes, I do have a passport." The only reason I had a passport is 2016. I got a passport because I was going to go play football in Canada. And I had told myself, if I can get a job here, I will not go play in Canada. Fortunately for me, I was able to get a job here in Oklahoma. I told my agent I wouldn't play ball anymore. Well, fast forward to now, I had this passport for 8 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I need to use this sucker. And I was like, well, I guess I'll go down to Mexico because I can drive out of the country right there, And less than about a week later, I'm dealing with this Louis Vuitton, collaboration. And they asked me, if I'd be interested. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, you got a passport? And I was like, yeah. And it was like, okay, we'll call you back in 2 weeks. And that was literally it. So I'm like, okay. I was like, man, I knew it was a scam,
Yeah, right.
But literally, 2 weeks later, they called and said, yeah, man, are you still on to go? And I'm like, yeah. Like, well, we're going to send over a bunch of paperwork. And up until this point, I have never done that much paperwork. So that was the headache. But like I say, with having a team in place, it all made it a little bit easier for me. But that opportunity was, it's second to none, in my book, because, I was invited not just to be a model, but to highlight, the introduction of the Western apparel for this prestigious brand. You see what I mean? They didn't want to just throw it out there without having any authentic background. And I think that was more so monumental, but standing for me is because it's a billion people in this world. How did y'all find me? And it goes back through, like I say, just a consistent output of me, not necessarily even promoting my lifestyle. I just use Instagram as a tool to keep my friends, family, and at this point fans updated on just my day-to-day lifestyle stuff, and that's how I was discovered. I get there, get to Paris, and like I said, it's a lot that goes into this, but to sum it up, I get there and I walk in the building to headquarters for fitting, and everybody just start clapping. like everybody, it's probably 40 or 50 people in this room. Everybody's working. You know, you got hair and makeup, you got styling, you got fitting. Everybody's on the same floor plan. It's 2 doors, and I walked in, you can hear a pin drop, and you just hear everybody start clapping. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm like, oh, that's fine. The lady, the lead director, she comes, she's like, she touching my face and grabbing me. She's like, you're real? Like, I finally get to see you.
It's like a scene from Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah. So I'm just standing there, and I'm just like, and all these people, and I mean, I'm probably taller than 90% of people in the room, so it's just like, I'm just looking over, and everybody, you know, just cheesing and grinning. And I'm like, okay. And I look over, you know, and it's a household name. There's some guys over there that's pretty famous here in the U.S., you know, and they standing over, and they just kind of looking at this reaction. I mean, if I can say it on here, it's the Sanders sons, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where our relationship actually started. They come over, and Shiloh, he like, you know, hey, I'm Shiloh. You know, he introduced himself. I'm like, yeah, I'm Ronnie. So I know who you are, you know. And his older brother, Deion Sanders Jr., he like, yeah, he introduced, I'm Deion Sanders Jr. I'm like, yeah, you know, I said, I played with you. I said, we were actually in college playing football around the same time. Mm-hmm. Okay, he said, man, you the Cowboy, huh? I'm like, yeah. He said, bro, they didn't do that when y'all came in? He's like, no. You know, here, like, those guys are pretty famous here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they didn't do that when y'all came in? They're like, no. So now I'm like, oh, snap. So this is probably bigger than, that, like, I think that was, like, the first eye-opening deal. I was like, well, I guess, you know, they're pretty hyped up on this Cowboy deal, you know. We start the process instantly, you know what I mean? They start shaving my hair, doing whatever the look that they wanted me. And
what was the reaction when they start shaving your hair? You're like, wait a sec.
Yeah, like literally, like I've never been sized up like this. Okay. It was about 3 or 4 people coming. It's people looking at my hair, doing stuff to it's people looking at my face. Somebody clothes, they just grab me, and it's like a machine. They start instantly, you know. So I'm pulled here. A guy starts shaving my hair, and other guys getting the looks together that they want me in. And out of nowhere, a guy comes like, hey, stop, Pharrell wants to meet him. And I'm like, half of my hair is cut, the other half, I'm like, well, I got to finish my hair. He's like, no, we'll come back. Like, Pharrell wants to meet you. So we go into the office. He's briefing about, you know, a team of probably 12 people. Mm-hmm. And the guy watching, hey, man, the Cowboys here. You know, and Pharrell, like, hey, you guys go to lunch. And he stopped everything. And I'll never forget, like, how sincere he was on just, like, thanking me for coming and welcoming me for being there and kind of, you know, I guess taking this opportunity that he's presenting to me. And I'm like, hey, man, I appreciate you, you know, of course. But I'm just like, yeah, man, thanks for it, you know. And he was just real humble about it. He's like, man, if there's anything I can do to assist you, are you here? Like, right now, like, man, like you guys are the pride of what we're doing right now, you know. Mm. I'm like, I hadn't ever felt like that because, I mean, again, I'm not a model. And they actually have models basically that are their key looks. Mm-hmm. These guys have been working for 3 or 4 years, and they like, yo, what's up, bro? You know, they come in like, man, like, yeah, so who are you signing with? And, you know, like, everybody's in a talent agency or something like that or mine. I'm like, nobody? Yeah. Really? Like, how you here? Like these guys are coming from Amiri, you know, Balenciaga, like other gigs, you know, they're just flowing in.
They've done this their entire lives. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
And they're like, I was like, yeah, I haven't did any of that before. They're like, no way. Like, Louis Vitton, this is your first gig? I'm like, yeah. Like, bro. They're like, you lucky. And, like, I just remember telling them, like, Louis Vuitton put so much into this fashion show. I mean, they built a new building. There was a lot of stuff they put into it, but these other models, like, bro, like, this is the best brand. We love working with this brand because they don't have a budget. And, like, they take care of us, you know, food. It's always a state-of-the-art facilities. And I'm just like, how am I, you know, kid out of Oklahoma, you know, experiencing this, you know, and at that point, like I said, people ask me like how. I was like, I don't know, bro. They just emailed me, you know, and I followed up, and that's what landed the gig. But like I say, as we're there, guys like, he's like, man, I got a 6-month PDF file on you. He's like, I'm like, huh? He said, we've been watching for 6 months, and that just goes to show us like you never know who's watching out there, you know. And this is me, literally. Like, I mean, I'm here in Oklahoma, so I post like wild stuff, like, you know, shooting guns or having fun, like outdoors, 4-wheelers, fishing. Like, I just post outdoor stuff, you know. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, I
I guess I didn't post nothing bad. Not like I posted anything bad, but it's just like, heck, I was trying to think of what all I posted over 6 months, which I mean, most of my content is horse and rodeo stuff, but just for those people to kind of like, I guess, be driven by that, it was eye-opening for me, you know, and I was like, well, you never know who's watching. And I was like, if, you know, my lifestyle or me just being me can create more opportunities like this for myself, like, that's the goal for sure, but to also somehow develop a blueprint for people who see what I'm doing and maybe want to be interested into this lifestyle, because I've never known anything about being a model. I never classified myself as a model. I never knew the modeling world would pick up on me. But that's what Louis Vitton in Paris did for me. You know, that's what that gig did for me. It opened up more. It opened up a new avenue, but it also opened up like more room to grow within. You know, and I think for me that was the most important deal.
Yeah. Was Pharrell wearing his silly hat?
Yeah. Well, when I went there, he
silly.
had
It's not a silly hat. It's the hat that everyone knows.
He had his hat on.
Yeah.
Man, he had gold teeth in his mouth, and like I say, everybody there is speaking, you know, more so a different language. But just to see him just being his authentic self on that platform, you know. It also gave me like a sense of like comfort. Like, hey man, like people will accept you for you. You know, just keep being you. And that was my thing. Like, man, I've been fortunate to like come across opportunities, you know, where I didn't have to compromise who I was as a person. You know, and I think that's been the most rewarding of it all, is just being able to show up to these gigs or events as myself. You know, if I don't have to go in and put on this persona, like 100% of what you're getting from me is all authentic, you know, and I think that creates a more organic approach, but also it stains people more, because it's like maybe the next time they see me, they're getting the same person, you know. And yeah, it was neat. It was a neat deal.
So it wasn't just you that went. You took a few guys with you.
Yeah,
right?
I did.
And then how does that, like that day, you know, you meet everybody. How does the rest of the trip go? Because they size you up, put you in your suit, you know, your outfits, and
we did fitting, you know, and we met everybody, and instantly, it was I, myself, Taylor Williams, Kamal Miller out of California. We were the 3 American Cowboys. I mean, basically the only 3 authentic Cowboys there. But they had maybe 90 looks that they wanted to show. So of course you had other guys that were invited, and for us it was pretty cool to be there with the Sanders boys for more than one reason. You know, Taylor, he was still in college around that time, so he was able to kind of instantly click with the younger guys, but it was a sense of kind of like, y'all haven't done this before, we haven't either. So it was like we were all able to kind of like feel like, hey man, we just learned this, you know, because we're there with professionals, you know. Right. And you know, we did fitting the first day. The next day we went right into rehearsal, and the rehearsal was, I mean, it was nice, you know. I was told within rehearsal that we would have Native Americans coming from the Lakota tribe, from North Dakota and South Dakotas, to basically present a powwow. And I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? But they came and found me to tell me that, like, you know, like, we want to let you know, like, both your worlds be basically colliding on this national platform. And I'm like, wow. So it wasn't just the Western wear that they were introducing turquoise, you know what I mean, which is a big Native American style jewelry, you know, a lot of what we portray here in Oklahoma. So it was just like, wow, you know, like, it was monumental for me. And but it was all, like I said, it was a business, you know. You had an itinerary, so you have these, I wouldn't even call them kids, but you had these young men, anywhere from 20 to, heck, 30 or 35, sometimes 40. It was older guys there, but basically we're all assembled in this country, you know, from other places to do a job. Yeah. And we were all able to niche together because we were there for, you know, that reason. You know, a lot of those guys they travel together. They've done other modeling gigs, so they had their group. But they were welcoming. They enjoyed like having new people there to kind of like. It was funny to them seeing us. Yeah, so there was a lot of stuff that you know went in behind the scenes that was really, you know, key whenever we talk about the full output that we put out there in front of the world.
What's it like walking? What's the day like? You mean, you nervous when you wake up? Like, because they wanted you to walk a certain way, I would assume, right? Like you're in their clothes. They've chosen you for a reason. But like you said, you've never done this before. So
never.
They probably had a crash course in walking, modeling down a runway.
We had a coach, Calvin, and it was so funny, man, because this guy took off walking so fast, and we all looked at each other like, there's no way we can walk that fast. And it's like wearing boots. Like, of course, we wear boots, but these were boots with leather soles. And it was a lot of things that were kind of tricky. And it's like, he was coaching us on walking, and he got to the point, he said, hey, look, I tell you this. I'm not going to be able to train y'all in 2 or 3 days. He's like, so just walk how you walk, but walk fast. And he said, look straight. And it was like, he said, because every turn there will be a camera, you know, at the end. He was like, so don't get lost. Don't have wandering eyes, you know, certain things.
Oh, yeah.
On how these photographers get these key looks and these images that they, you know,
they
didn't go to promote.
Right down the middle. Yeah.
So it's like every turn, you know, it was certain things that you had to learn, you know, to keep it a narrow look, you know, straight ahead, pivot into the turn. It was certain things like it's kind of like military style walking, you know. So it was things like that was like intriguing to me, but. More than anything, it was a learning experience, you know. The show day, you know, I was nervous. You know, we had went through the routine. We had a rehearsal the day before, and we had rehearsal the morning of the actual show. And I got to the show, and we all went out 10 seconds apart. And within that 10 seconds of the guy leaving in front of me, I forgot everything I had learned at that point. When I say I was so nervous... Because now, like you say, you're not walking out and the crowd is 100 feet away sitting in bleachers. No, you walking out and these people are less than a foot away from where you turn in this alleyways and there's people with cameras. It's an audience, it's cameras. It was so much, it's lights. It's literally like I was in the trench. I don't know if you've seen my wardrobe.
You have a long black trench coat.
Yes, I was in a trench coat, slacks. I had a long sleeve under there. I had a felt hat on, and I just remember, like, they put makeup on me, you know, and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to start sweating here in a minute, because I start feeling, I'm nervous, and I got a bag to carry that was probably 20 pounds and felt like it was 50. It was just a lot going into that moment, and it's 10-second countdown, so you let that person go out, and they start counting down, and I'm sitting there, and I said, which way do I go? And the person, she's like, I don't know. She just pushed me out, like, go. And I came out, and I took a small false step, but I rode into it so good that you wouldn't even be able to tell. And it's like I came out and I hit it with I was about to go left, and I was supposed to go right, and it was just like it was almost like I was
a little step.
Yeah, it was like I was setting my pivot for the turn. And I just never forget, like, it was literally, like, the moment I came out, it was a camera right there. And I was like, oh, my gosh. But, you know, we did it. And when you look at the video, everything came out exactly how they wanted it. And I just remember, like, I wasn't the only one who felt like that. I was like, bro, like, in rehearsal, we went out 2 seconds apart so I can see which way they turned. I was like, bro, I forgot. I said, man, me too. I said, I forgot it. I said, I'm glad that I was going the right way. I said, but yeah, I forgot everything. I learned, I rehearsed this for 2 days straight and forgot everything in 10 seconds. I mean, I knew I had to walk. I didn't forget, you know, I had to walk and look, but but like you say, after practicing something, you know, it's kind of like muscle memory. It was like, I guess my body knew, like, to turn right. Like, I was basically throwing myself off mentally because it was like, here's the big moment. And, like, everybody in the world is watching. Everybody back home is watching them. Like, oh, my gosh. It was all these thoughts. But overall, you know, it was a very, very wonderful experience. I mean, I was there with celebrity figures from all over. I personally never even thought that I would even have the qualifications to be in a room amongst those people, you know. But that there just was kind of like reassurance, like, man, you're on the right path. Like I said, I've never really desired to be this celebrity figure or nothing like that. My whole goal and journey is to create a stream of resources for the people to come after me and to leave a foundation for my kids, you know. So somehow I've just embarked on this journey.
Yeah.
And it's been fun, you know. It's been fun. It's forced me to come out of my shell. I'm like a dominant introvert, so I've been put into situations where I had to be more social.
Like,
you know?
this.
Yeah, like
Talk
this.
about yourself.
Like this.
For the lights. Yeah.
This is all preparation, you know.
Right.
Like, I probably thought I was ready to do a podcast a year ago, and I'm sure I wasn't. I mean, I didn't know I was ready until today. I don't even think I'm ready now, but I just like to say, like, experiences over time, you know, grooms us for what's to come. So I appreciate you for, you know, giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.
And like
the world aligns, because you mentioned Houston earlier, and we sat next to each other at the Heritage Western Awards, and the world is aligned for a reason. So another little sign on the journey, right? That you're doing the right thing.
Sure.
What do you have this moment in Paris, the world's watching, you know, Louis Vuitton launches, you know, this kind of cowboy line, which they hadn't done maybe ever, or not for a long time. Everyone's watching you. What do you use that as a way to jump forward? You know, you mentioned people, you meeting all these models, they all have agencies, you don't. How do you springboard that forward, and how do you use that into today's world that, you know, 2025, what Cowboy looks like to you, but also how do you, because you still work full time, right? So you have two lives, right? You have the modeling side and you have what are the lessons you take from Louis Vuitton? How does that springboard you forward to both areas of your world?
I would say some of the biggest lessons, one of the most important lessons I took from was just to remain myself, you know what I mean? And then, you know, but also to hold myself to higher standards, you know. I never, like I say, Louis Vuitton is a prestigious brand, you know. I always feel like maybe, you know, and within myself, confident-wise, that, you know what I mean, I could do whatever I want to do, but I've never held myself to that level of expertise or even professionalism that was demonstrated and required of me at that point, you know. But so I've used that to kind of continue to sharpen myself as a tool, and more than anything, prepare for what's to come. You know, I didn't know Louis Vuitton was coming, you know. So moving forward, it was like, okay, there could possibly be other things like that are in my, you know, my makeup, you know, that are in my wheel of life that are coming. So what can I learn from this situation? Like, okay, I started taking care of myself. Like you say, for a living, I mean, I ranch, so I'm outside daily. Like, I had to start doing things like I thought were like girly or just, you know, like self-maintenance, like sunblock or sunscreen or facials, and you know, it's just little stuff. Like, I wake up every day, I wash my face, you know, I go home, shower, you know, I do like the usual hygiene things, but it's like, okay, the world is looking at you in a different light, and there's certain things that they're going to pay attention to. So for me, it's like, how can I assist these people? You know, it's like, yeah, we get makeup, we get these certain things, but it's like, how can I do my 50% of what I have to offer before I get to those things? And, you know, it's taught me a lot, you know. It's helped me, you know, health-wise, but more than anything, confidence-wise, too. And it's opened up a new venture for myself. Like I say right now, I have some pretty big things going on within this modeling world that I've been accustomed to, that I'm prideful about now. You know, at first I never, you know, it took me up to now, you know, the whole year last year, I never even would classify myself as a model. And there's people, oh, you're the Louis Vuitton model, you're the Louis Vuitton Cowboy. It's like, man, I just rodeo and I ranch. You can call me what you want. Right. Like, you call me a cowboy, and you look at me, I guess I'm a cowboy. You know, I never really called myself a cowboy. You know, we were raised on cowboys and Indians. I'm Indian, you know. But it's like, the sky is blue, when you look at it, it's a blue sky. And it's like, hey, man, you do stuff that cowboys do, you're a cowboy. And, you know, I would say more than anything, the cowboy community has, you know, it's mixed feels about it, but for the most part, they welcomed, you know, what I offer to the Western world. They're like, hey, man, you know, we know you can ride a horse, you know what I mean? A lot of the world probably look at you like, oh, man, they see, oh, but he's not a real cowboy just because they see you, you know, in the clothes. And, you know, up until then, I mean, even now, you have a lot of people that pose as cowboys or pose as, you know, Western influencers. And it's like, for me, I never looked at myself as that. It was just a kid from Oklahoma with horses, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, outdoorsman, and, you know, I rodeo for a living now. I ranch, you know, I do cowboy stuff. So it's like, you're a cowboy, okay. Yeah. Well, I model too. I do things that I take pictures, videos, cameos, and like, well, you a model. And it's like, you know, so more than anything, it just taught me how to pride myself on who I am as a person, understand what the world see me as, but also, more than anything, understand who I am as a person and what I can offer.
Tell me about 8084, what that means to you and what the plan is with that going forward.
8084, I mean, that's it's a brand that's really, it's driven by a creator, you know what I mean? He calls the headquarters, you know, the home of the creatives. And this brand, it's not like any other brand, you know, it's a urban Western brand, but for me, it kind of symbolizes everything that I offer as a person. And it's like, this brand found me, you know, like we found each other. And just for us to be able to coexist and correlate what we're trying to show the world, you know, for it to be as authentic as it is, you know, that itself represents 8084. It's an authentic brand, you know. It's a place where you can come in as an individual talent, as a creator, and excel, you know. So the brand itself, you know, it's apparel, you know. They've even ventured off into teas, you know, other things, you know. It's like a wellness brand, you know what I mean? They do apparel, but, you know, it's highlighting wellness of the individual, of the talents, you know what I mean? It's a safe space for talents to go and thrive, to grow. 8084 as a whole is it's a demonstration of what independent contractors are presuming to be and will be from here on out. You know, I believe the creator, you know, he prides himself on offering authentic, you know, dimensions to help promote the talent, but also find ways to promote what he has to offer within the talent. And like I said, I know that's a lot, but that's just me describing 8084, you know, off the top of my head. You know, it means so much to me, but you know, it's a apparel brand that's growing and it's thriving, you know. And the more people that sees the brand, the better, you know, because it's a smaller in-house brand with global projections, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's kind of like in my mind, it's like how Louis Vitton discovered me, and it's like the world took heed of it. The right person discovered 8084. It'll blow. It'll spread like wildfire. You know, the world will take heed of it too. Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes from, I mean, like I say, the CEO of the brand. You know what I mean? It's the same with him. You know, if you meet him, you know, all he says is like, man, get you in the room and let you just be you. Because it's something that, you know, he's a servant. You know, he can assist people in ways that he probably don't even know. You know, I don't know. Like, I tell people all the time, like, bro, they come to me with the most radical ideas, and I don't know what to tell you. I can call somebody that can probably tell you something, you know what I mean? Like, but some way, somehow, he always kind of has, like some news you can use. And I think that's what is his brand, his apparel, 8084, what that offers, too, because it's like, I mean, he got clothes for every occasion. You know, if I'm just ranching, I got clothes. If I'm traveling and, you know, I'm going through the airports, I got sweatsuits. If I got a business meeting to be at and I need a button up, I need slacks or I need jeans, this brand is a host of everything I need. And when I tell you, I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with this brand, like, I don't really have to style myself for events or anything because everything that I need, the brand hosts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they don't have it, like I said, it's home of the creators. They can create it. You know what I mean? So even sometimes an idea, for me, I feel like it's far left. You know, somehow, some way he'll find a way to bring it in the center field. You know what I mean? And, you know, I pride myself on having that tool in my toolkit.
Yeah. Let's talk about some boot wear, and you're the face of Tecovas now.
Yeah.
How's that happen? Because they don't do that, right?
Yeah.
If anyone's been in Austin recently, you probably see Ronnie's face all over the place down in Austin.
Man, hats off to Tecovas, man. Right now, by far, they're probably my favorite brand I've ever worked with. And not even the brand, it's the people that make the brand. You know what I mean? The people within the team that has been assigned to me. Very personable, you know, small, family feel, welcoming, small group of radicals, you know what I mean? Individualists, you know, who come together and are like-minded and they put out good product. I don't know, again, I don't know really how or why I landed in that position that I am for the brand, but it's the best decision they made, and it's the best decision I've made up until this point.
Yeah.
It's so much unreleased work that, you know, that they have. Like, everything we've seen is literally stuff I did from the first time I met them, you know. So it's like they have a vault of unreleased stuff and things that'll happen, that'll drop this year. But, you know, I just say more than anything, Tecovas is this brand, you know, of course, that when you see me in Tecovas, like, no. But now, like, the more you learn about Tecovas, you're like, yeah. Like we didn't even know this part of Tecovas, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think what we're having so much fun with is that the world they hadn't seen this side of Tecovas yet. So it's like Tecovas always knew they had it, you know. It was kind of like a business move. We call it a nice move. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like a chess piece. You know what I mean? Like they set on this ideal that they had. And in my mind, I met Tecovas 2 years ago at a rodeo in Portland. I didn't know much about the brand. But even then, you know, they gave me a shirt, put my name on it. They let me sit on their panel and talk about rodeo and what I could offer to rodeo. And this is a rodeo that I wasn't even on deck to perform in. I was just invited to help with, you know, the performers and the livestock. But that was my first gist of Tecovas, and I'm like, I like what they doing over there. You know, I'm like, if I can find a way to get, you know, with them, that'll be cool. In my mind, I was just looking like, oh, this is another brand that, you know, I like what they're doing. But looking at them 2 years ago, it was nowhere that I could see myself implementing into their scheme. And, you know, of course, I always felt like, you know, I was confident in myself, like, man, when we can do something, it was like, nah. And, you know, last year, the same rodeo event, Portland, Oregon, about a month prior, they had emailed me like, hey, you know, what's your shirt size? We'll be better. So I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna bring me a shirt this time. You know, they're including me into, you know. So I was like, wow, that's cool. And I went there, you know. It was another good rodeo turnout. I even got some boots customized from Tecovas, but that was that. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow. Well, that's cool. And I'm like, man, I want to work Tecovas one day. But like I said, that was just that. Fast forward to December that year, one of the people amongst their marketing and collaboration team, she had reached out and she's like, hey, you know, what's your email? We may have a gig for you. And I sent it over. and here comes the roller coaster ride. It's like, okay, yeah, we need you on these dates, you know. And I'm like, heck shit. I'm like, man, we smashed it. We finally got Tecovas. And about a week later, like, yeah, you can hold those. You can release those dates. We don't need you. I'm like,
come on. You're playing with me.
I remember telling Houston, I said, man, I said, I got my hopes up. Man, I said, I remember going back to the drawing boards because, mind you, every gig, like, when these gigs come across, these opportunities, I'm horseback, I'm ranching. Like,
yeah,
I probably don't see him. Houston may see him before me, or we may see him around the same time. Like, hey, man, you seen the email? I'm like, nah. He's like, check it out. So, like I said, it's another one of those gigs, and I'm like, man, so I'm just doing my thing. But like I say, horses are therapy for me. So, while I'm dealing with my mixed emotions on them telling me to release the dates, and I probably kicked the horse a little harder, you know, snatched the calf or something around a little more. But it was all just like, hey, they understand, like, oh, man, he's, you know, something's bothering him today. Well, about a week later, they circled back around. And that's why I said it was a roller coaster mentally for me, because it's like, hey, yeah, we're back. Those dates we were talking about, are you still open for them? I said, we're not doing this. I said, can we get on the call, please? Because I'm trying to email. I'm following it, but can we get on the call? And they're like, yeah. She's like, we're kind of busy, but you don't want to answer the email? No, I want to talk to somebody right now, just anybody. I don't care who. Just, can I get on the phone with somebody? She's like, yeah, I'll call you in a bit. Long story short, she calls. She's like, hey, sorry, you know what I mean? We offered, and then we pulled it. It's like, but we're just trying to get this ideal. You know, it's new to us. We're trying to basically, you know, I think what they were essentially doing, you know, everybody has, you know, it's just business. You know what I mean? Like, we want this for you, and we're trying to figure out how to implement that into our scheme. And then maybe at the time they didn't have it, but in my mind, I was like, I hope I get it. And when we were on the phone call, you know, everything went well. She's like, so I can tell you more if you say yeah, like you're interested. And I'm like, all right, yeah. She said, all right. And she just started telling me everything, you know. But for a while, like, I was asking questions that she, like, couldn't really disclose, because she like, well, you haven't even told me if you're going to take the gig or not. Yeah. I was like, well, I don't want to say yeah and y'all say no again. Right. So, like, before I say yeah, how can we get to where, you know, we can meet in the middle?
Yeah. So you end up going down there, shooting the stuff with them, and having them as a another kind of
manifestation
patch.
Again, man. Yeah. You know, like I said, I had never been out the country. Here's Louis Vitton. I go to Paris. I end up doing a separate campaign for Louis Vuitton. Went to Italy, and I was like, man, I've been to Texas a lot. I've never been to Austin. Never knew Tecovas would come get me, and literally 2 months later, I'm in Austin. You know, so it was my first time ever going to Austin, and it was for Tecovas. Yeah. And, you know, I didn't know what to expect from this brand. I remember prior to going there, just surfing their website, and I'm like, it was kind of funny. I laughed at Houston about it. I said, yeah, I don't know what we're going to do here. You know, I said, I looked at the website. I don't know how I'm going to fit into this scheme. But, you know, hey, we're going to figure it out. He said, man, hey, we're going to get there. We're going to figure it out. I get there, you know, instantly, you know what I mean? We get to work. And I just remember hearing Scott, he like, yeah, that's what I was wanting, like that. And to hear that, like, I didn't really know, you know, the significance of who Scott was at that time. And I was like, all right. And, you know, me and Houston, we kind of joked about it, but, like, afterwards, you know, we always try to, you know, if we're exiting, we'll circle back around, you know, hey, thanks, you know. Of course, so we're getting ready to exit. We're done, work day, you know, shoot went well. And we kind of walked in on, like, a little, you know, an ending meeting, and one of the photographers, like, he did everything that I needed him to. He made my life easier today. I didn't know. It was a couple miles there, so I didn't know who they were talking about. You know, I just walked in. And, hey, man, thank y'all so much for the opportunity. Hope to see y'all again. And like, hey, we were just talking about you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like, yeah, no, like, thank you. You know, and I was like, okay. I left it at that. You know, and in my mind, I'm like, man, I hope we get to do business with them again. You know, I said I kind of enjoyed that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't expect that. And they was like, yeah, you know, come check out headquarters, you know. And we actually went back maybe about a couple weeks later to actually check out the headquarters there in Austin. And I, in my mind, had this I don't know, I wanted to ask them if essentially I can work with them again. And they already had plans for that, you know? So I get there and like, yeah, you know, we're going through everything. And, you know, I just got in and tell them like, man, you know, whether we work again or not, I appreciate y'all for, you know, like I didn't know what I was getting into when I committed to this, but I appreciate you all for making it what it was, you know? And it's like, no, like, you're not done. Like, have you talked to Scott? You know, like, no, you should holler at Scott. He told me, you know, to stay. He's on lunch, but, you know, essentially, like, it was more to talk about.
Cool.
And that led to, I mean, now I love the brand, you know. I love the way they unapologetically helped me show the world who I am and what I can be and what I can offer to this space. They took a chance on me, you know, because like I said, if you know Tecovas, this is totally different, you know.
Yeah.
But they literally made me, and I can confidently say, you know, humbly speaking, the face of their brand. And that there, more than anything, like you said, we talk about reward and motivating, you know, and things to keep going along this journey. Heck, if that don't get somebody going, I don't know what will. You know, like I said, this is another gig, another deal that I had no plans, I had no connections prior to. You know, they took a chance on me, and it's working.
Yeah.
Like we say, it's working. And just to see things working, like I say, it motivates me to keep going, but also, like man, it makes me want to do more for them, like to show my appreciation, you know. They took a chance, and it's working. You know, I don't know how else to put it, but it's working. Like, I feel it, I see it. I'm enjoying it. I'm starting to live into that space, like just true confidence. They've helped me build confidence as a model, confidence within myself as, you know, just adding to my character. They've basically helped me instill certain things, or basically helped me, I guess, express certain things I've always had within that I just wasn't comfortable about expressing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hats off to
Sounds like a great partnership.
Yeah.
We can't finish this without talking about our good mutual friend Seth over at the Cowboy Hall of Fame National Western Heritage Museum, for those people who don't call it Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Yes.
They've got some great exhibits going on right now, but one particularly, I mean, they have the boot exhibit, right?
Yes, sir.
But one particularly, Wild Horse Creek with Love.
Wild Horse Creek with Love. That, like I say, you've heard it here first. And like I say, hats off to Seth and the whole National Cowboy Museum. That partnership and relationship was the first amongst everything you see now, and has been one of the most fruitful as well. But from Wild Horse Creek with Love will be, it's in the works, you know. Like I say, we're working very close with the museum on presenting a breathtaking exhibition, one that's never been seen before. But it also dives deeper into Ronnie Davis. Like I said, I've said, you know, a lot, or as much as I could, you know, regarding the questions that you've answered.
Yeah.
But there's some things.
There's things coming.
Yeah, there's some things that I haven't even spoken about it, you know, that if I've even forgot it's happened, but this exhibition will also dig deeper into the ancestry, the inheritance. It's a one-of-one exhibition. It'll be something new that the museum is doing. So bear with us. You know, we're putting everything together.
Do you have a potential launch date?
Launch date. Right now we don't have a potential date, but 2026.
Okay.
It will be alive and thriving. I'll give you a launch year.
Okay.
You know, so
love that.
We're halfway through 2025. Like everything, you know, we'll take our time. Everything is very strategic. There's a lot that goes into, you know, good work, but this is something that we've manifested. You know, we've worked towards. Timing is everything. You know, if you ask us, we probably thought we were ready this year.
Yeah.
But like you say, the universe is always working with us and not against us. So whenever it does drop, it'll be perfect timing. But we'll say 2026, with hopes, of course. But more than anything, thank you, Seth. Thank you to the National Cowboy Hall of Fame Museum. You know, they've helped in more ways than I can explain and demonstrate, but they've also helped this global phenomenon about cowboy culture. They've helped give you insight.
Yeah,
you know,
we're spoiled to have it in our backyard.
No, we
right?
are.
The
we
reach
are.
that they have, and I think it's. I was shocked to know that they have like 80 board members, and they're from all over the country.
All over. Yes,
and they were we were at the event, right? They were all there for the event. And
yes.
We're in their great Western outfits. Saw you both in a fly jackets, you're turning heads.
Yes, sir.
But no, they do amazing, incredible things over it. And I think coming up soon, maybe the Chuck Wagon Festival.
The Chuck Wagon Festival,
soon, right?
Memorial Day weekend. I'll be there for
out.
that. I'll be in and out. I have a rodeo that day. I have two rodeos that weekend. But like I say, I partner with them on that event, and I've been fortunate enough to partner with them for the Chuck Wagon event the last 2 years. And it's been a neat deal, man.
Yeah.
It's kids, it's family. They come out. You know, heck, I enjoy walking through the park and eating the food. You know. It's some things that the museum has to offer. Like I say, I grew up here in Oklahoma City. I hadn't ever been to the museum, not even for a field trip.
Yeah.
And I told myself again, I said, man, I'm grown now. I want to go check out that museum. And again, I never had to purchase a ticket. You know, the universe is like, hey, you know, we're going to do a documentary release there for you. You'll star in a documentary that'll release in 2 months. And I'm like, huh? Like, you ought to be at the museum. I said, bro, again, universe, manifestation. I had just drove by one day and said, man, I want to at least walk the halls. And I was going to go buy an admission ticket. And I had got an email like, hey, you know, the documentary will release at the National Cowboy Museum February 2nd. We'll be there. And I'm like, wow. So I was like, hey, you know, I got to keep a little money in my pocket. But more than anything, that was the start of my relationship with the museum. And since then, opportunities have been endless. The partnership has been great. It's been very personable. And more than anything, like I said, this is another space that has welcomed me and just allowed me to just be who I am, you know, unapologetically and respectfully, you know. So I'm thankful for sure.
Yeah. Shout out to Seth and the team.
Shout out to Seth. Yes.
All right. Last question. I love to finish with this one because this is my world now. Not now, but has been my world for the last 10 years. Selling houses, the best kind. And so if you were to build your dream house today, what does it look like and what would you have?
Dream house right now. And I'm glad you asked me this because, you know, in my mind, I've already
manifestation, baby.
Yeah.
It is happening.
So what is going to happen? You know, I'm fine with 20 acres, you know. I want acreage, of course. I won't put a number on it because, heck, it could be 10 to 1,000. I don't mind that. But dream house wise, I want it somewhere positioned to where I can oversee most of my acreage. So, you know, not really like house on the hill, but it can be a house on the hill. But there will be a shop connected to it, you know, for boats, trailers, you know, cars and things like that. And adjacent to that shop, there'd also be another connected facility. I won't even say barn, you know, but, you know, I'll have an indoor facility, you know, that will host, you know, some of my performance horses. You know, of course, I won't put everything there, but it'll have, you know, a living area for some of my horses. So the ideal here is that, hey, I can bring you into my house through my front door, through my garage, and we never go outside again I can basically show you all the facilities by, basically walking through my house.
Yeah.
And, we end up out, like I say, on the paddock or, headed outside. Whenever we end up outside, we've literally walked from the house. You've seen the boats, the cars, the antiques, whatever. We go from there into our barn. You're now seeing maybe my daughter's out there working a couple horses or something, But you're seeing where, I do my practice at and, I feel my prize horses. And then we go out and look at the fun stuff, whether it's like 4-wheelers, horses, barns, But ideally, like I said, I would love to have this one of one, like I say. Because in my mind, it's like I spend most of my time outdoors. So it's like, I want my family to be involved with that, like without having to feel like they're outdoors with me. So it's like I can be in my barn that, maybe they can get over to, like, hey, Dad, we need you in the house right now. And I can really go, like the whole objective is just to make them feel comfortable with me still doing what I do. Because like I say, my daughters, they could care less about rodeo. The youngest one, she love it. But ideally, I just want my family to be with me at all times. But hey, I could be 2 to 5 acres away, but still within reaching range, I would say.
Sounds awesome.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned cars, and I know you've written. You like the old four-wheeler now and again.
Yeah.
So, if that battery dies, I'll just cut this out. But any dream cars in the potential garage? You sound like you like. Clearly you like to go fast.
Yeah.
Cars, bikes. What's your
I love the Porsche brand, and I think it's probably, I love the Porsche brand, so I would love to have a sport, a two-door.
Yeah.
It could be Porsche or Ferrari, because I love both. But I would also like to have a sedan, a dad car. And then, I got to have the biggest, baddest truck. It ain't got to be lifted up super high or none of that, but it'll have mud tires. It'll probably be a 450. It'll be able to haul my house away if I needed to, something like that. So
you
ideally,
have brand specific with the truck? Are you loyal to a brand or not?
I come from a Chevy family.
Okay.
I ventured off into Dodge because I love the way it tows my trailer.
Okay.
But man, Ford, I've come around a lot of Ford owners, and they got a different walk about them. They're always happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
don't know what it is about a Ford and the owners, but they well off,
Yeah.
And when I say well off, it don't always have to be financially. They can be, heck,
they're secure.
Yeah, they secure, within. And I think, Ford is growing on me, and I like the 450. You know what I mean? I like the 450. I like the Laredo conversions. So it's like, for me, I want a nice, ranch truck for sure, like a ranch hand. But I love Dodge. I love the towing capacity. I love the turbos. I love the aggressive approach. So we'll keep it Dodge. We'll keep it Ford.
Sounds good. Where do people find you?
You can find me on Instagram or all of the main platforms. Just type in Ronnie Davis, RONNIE, last name Davis, DAVIS. Instagram at RD, the number 2, and you got 3 Roman numeral I's afterwards. Essentially, I call it I. That's our native call. Yeah, so you can find me at that. And like I say, I usually only really use Instagram. I have a Facebook. That's more so for like the older family members. And I'm getting accustomed with TikTok. So like I say, all platforms, Ronnie Davis at RD, the number 2, 3-letter I's afterwards. And come enjoy the show, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. Hope to keep y'all entertained.
Yeah, awesome. I'll put the links down in the description, and we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, check out Bethany Children's Health Center. They're helping children reach their full potential as a leader in pediatric rehabilitation. They're also building a new outpatient center of excellence, and it's going to be a landmark right on Route 66. Want to learn more or even schedule a tour? Just head to bethanychildrens.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. That's bethanychildrens.org.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.